welcome back. It's been fun. You guys missed a whole lot of interesting talk about games and player spotlight on Michael Pittman Jr. So I would go back and check that out if you could. But if not, you just want to get to the segments. We're going to break it down right now. Starting off with the probably one that's going to get the most interest from this episode is the Jayden Daniels draft profile. So I don't want to beat around the bush with this. I want to get you guys right to what our thoughts are, and then for those that want to linger around for the explanation of why we came up with these thoughts that we did, we will explain that as well. So quarterback Jayden Daniels from LSU. He's 6'3". He's 185 pounds. Games that I watched were his Army game, Alabama, and Auburn, all from 2023. I like to watch the newer games because I'm watching the product that's as closely going to be playing the NFL and not 3 years ago from a dude. So the pros of Jayden Daniels: he's hyper athletic. He's great with running with the ball in his hands. He is a big play waiting to happen. He's always keeping his eyes downfield. He does a good job of towing the line between aggressive and reckless. He doesn't put the ball into too many dangerous situations, but he's always looking to, get the 20, 25, 30-yard throw downfield. He has a good arm. I wouldn't say he has a strong arm. And he seems to learn from his mistakes quickly, and he rarely repeats them. He makes decent pre-snap reads. Like I said, so, kind of more into that vein of like a Justin Fields kind of thing. The cons I have for him, I didn't think he was great at throwing on the run. There was a couple balls I saw where they either didn't have the same kind of steam on them or just inaccurate. He loses a good amount of velocity and accuracy while on the move. He can have a consistency problem with his footwork. There's a couple times where he either was falling out of his throws, where he really wasn't getting his feet aligned with where he was throwing to, so the ball came out a little high or a little behind. That can be cleaned up. Sometimes he seemed too eager to become a runner. So even if he had a clean pocket, he wasn't waiting for someone to get open or anything like that. He was just immediately tucking it down and running, which usually at that level was okay. And it didn't really cost him too much. But when you get to the NFL level, you don't want to be taking that many hits. I did see him get blown up one time in the Alabama game. He tried tucking and running and just got killed by a D tackle and a linebacker him at the same time. And he just flew 3 or 4 yards back. Yeah, it was a tough sight to see there. He doesn't often throw with anticipation, but he did do it a few times in the film I watched. So he is capable of throwing with anticipation. So that's something that could possibly be developed in the NFL. So yeah, kind of like I alluded to a little bit in the pros. When I say a comp, I don't mean this is exactly what he's going to be, and this is how it's more of a style comp. His strengths align with this person's strengths, and his weaknesses align with their weaknesses to varying degrees. Right. So for style comp, I said he was a Justin Fields to me. Any team that drafts him, you're going to have to hope that his legs can buy him enough patience from an organization to develop more. Kind of like that quote we saw from the assistant general manager from the Bills from the Bears that drafted Justin Fields. That was their hope, was that his legs would buy him enough time to develop. One of the big differences between Justin Fields and Jayden Daniels coming into this draft is Justin Fields had only had about 650 pass attempts in all of college. And Jayden Daniels at this point has about 1,300 pass attempps. Yeah. So, he's coming in with twice as much experience as Justin Fields did, so that should help accelerate his development. He's coming as more as a finished product versus Justin Fields did. Another thing I really liked, I think is going to play a lot into his success, is his ability to learn from his mistakes. There's a couple times to point out where in our pre-show we talked about, where he was missing certain throws or he wasn't getting to this read quick enough. And then later in that same game, he was fixing those mistakes, which is fantastic to see. It shows me he's very coachable. He seems to have a lot that he can still grow as a passer, either that's getting to reads quicker, spotting certain leverages that he could exploit, staying in the pocket and allowing things to develop and not taking as many hits. Let's see. And just like Justin Fields, he's, with the Bears, he was also part of a good offense that was consistently let down by an underperforming defense. And I say that because there's a few games where, the Bears offenses are averaging up 28, 30 points a game, but the defense gives up 40. So it's what can you do about that? Yeah. Just fix that right there. All right. I'm going to be blurry for a little bit, but that's okay, guys. You can still hear what I'm saying. As for a draft grade, I did give Jayden Daniels a second round grade. And I don't mean that's where I think he's actually going to get drafted. I think that's where I would love to see him drafted. I would love to see him go in the second round because then there's less pressure on him to succeed immediately and become a franchise quarterback immediately. I gives him time get more of that patience to develop, like a Will Levis kind of a situation. But I do expect he's probably going to be a top 10 pick. So I expect that's where he will go. But I think what would be best for his development would be a second round pick. So tell me your thoughts. Tell me, what did you see? A lot of the same stuff I saw. I'll try to get this fixed.
Yeah, no, hey, E, thank you so much for that thorough breakdown. I have exactly what you saw here. And I do just want to add a little bit more context, too, about his strengths. And now you mentioned the amount of live reps he's had throughout his career. Guys, he's been a 5-year starter, right? Like, you heard that right, 5 years. He had that COVID year. So he played 3 years at ASU, 2 years at LSU. And again, like, I want you all to understand how many reps he had over the last 5 years. He already mentioned he had close to 1,400 pass attempts over the last 5 years. And you brought up Fields and how he's kind of Jayden Daniels' comp, right? You already mentioned it, but Fields had about 600 pass attempts during his college career, right? And we've all heard the noise around Fields with being a passer in the NFL. And I think in part it's because he had a larger learning curve because of the amount of reps that he had or lack of reps he had in college. Jayden Daniels going into the league with more than double the amount of pass attempts and experience that Fields had, right? So in theory, the learning curve for Jayden Daniels should be a little bit shorter than a Justin Fields because he had those amount of live reps. And even now, going back to Fields, we look so far over his 3-year career in the league, and he has 800-ish, a little bit more, pass attempts right now. So at this point in time, with 3 years of experience in the league, he's at the same number of pass attempts that Jayden Daniels have. And Jayden Daniels hasn't stepped inside the league yet, right? He's still in college. So I want his experience to not be understated. I think that's going to be a big point for a lot of scouts and, GMs and whatnot in, looking at Jayden Daniels as a future top 10 pick because he has that experience built into his toolkit, right? And then another point I want to make too, he said his draft grade is around second round pick, but you believe that he'll be a top 10 pick. And I full on agree there. I think his stock right now is going to increase a lot after the combine. Like, I see him going to the combine. And, guys, we all know what the combine is. It's kind of like a pony show, right? We're seeing a lot of stocks rise and fall because of the combine. I think he's going to go there and pop off like a 4.40, right? And when that happens, I think you're all going to hear a lot of noise about Daniels being that top 10 pick. Like, he might even shoot up to be like the third quarterback taken after the combine, right? So I agree with all of your points. I want to see him throw with anticipation more. He didn't really need to as much at LSU, but he's going to be, I think, I don't know, nothing's been said yet, but he is a senior, so we should expect to see him in the Senior Bowl during the week of practice and in the actual game. So we'll be able to see him in structure in an NFL-like offense, right, and see if he can throw with rhythm and timing and see that aspect from him. But, I mean, you and I kind of spoke offline for a while about him, and he's been on my radar for a little over than like a month now. And I'm intrigued to see where he lands and just to see how he grows too within his rookie year if he's kind of put in that spot to play early. Because I think he could fare pretty well given his experience again and maybe having a shorter learning curve than other first-round quarterbacks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a matter of we're going to be able to see how far up his draft stock is going to rise over the next couple of weeks, especially with the Senior Bowl. It'd be interesting to see him play in an NFL-style system. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are because I know we've kind of discussed it a little bit. Where would you rank him as on your top quarterback so far that we've seen? So would you have him higher than Drake May? Would you have him lower than Drake May? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it's tough right now. I think I have Caleb as 1 and I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm going to put Drake May at 2A and probably Daniels at 2B. I'm still high on Penix too, so it's kind of hard to say right now.
2A? We're going 2A now? Oh, my God.
Hey, people have been putting Drake May and Caleb 1A, 1B. I'm not the only one here, okay?
Yeah, no.
Right.
I've heard of 1A, 1B before. I've never heard 2A, 2B. Usually it's like 1A, 1B.
He's tied right there for me. And Penix is pretty close too. So it's tough, man. I definitely have him in my top 4 right now, though. I think that's safe to say. I think maybe many people do. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he can go in the top 3 realm. And I mean, we've seen crazy stuff happen. What if he's like top 2 by April?
I hope not. I'm gonna be honest with you. I hope not. Just because.
No.
Okay. I get it. Again, I think I'm coming from the perspective of what's going to make this guy the most successful. I don't want him to be that, because when you get drafted top 2, you get the Zach Wilson treatment, right? If Zach Wilson was a 2nd round pick right now or a 3rd round pick right now, it's a much different situation. There's less pressure for him to succeed. We don't need to keep discussing going back and forth.
That's fair.
Same thing with Jayden Daniels. If you're a 2nd round pick, no one's calling, where's Jayden? After week 3. So when he does get entered into the lineup in week 8, like a Will Levis, and he has a couple struggles for the first few weeks, people aren't losing their shit. Like, this guy's a bust. What have we done? It's more of, oh, okay, whatever. We'll check back in a couple weeks. Then you check back in a couple weeks, like, oh, hey, by the way, this guy's now throwing for 300-yard games and running for 100 yards, and he looks like the reincarnation of Lamar Jackson or Randall Cunningham or something. So that's why I want
There's less pressure on him.
Exactly. I would love to have, because he's going to take a little bit of time to develop. He's, again, as I said in our pros, he's quick, he's smart. I think he doesn't make the same mistake too many times. Like, there was once I saw where I think it was against Army, where he didn't see the underneath backer and damn near threw a pick. The other 2 games I watched, I didn't see any of that. The only other interception I saw, I think it was in the Alabama game. I actually threw one in Auburn too, but in the Alabama game, it was tipped off a D lineman's head or something like that.
Yeah.
So, he didn't seem to repeat mistakes, but he does make the mistakes first and then learns from it. So if you're just watching him right out the gate for the first 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to be like, wow, this guy is terrible. It won't be until week 7, 8, 9 where you're like, okay, where did this guy come from? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't want all the attention on him at the beginning. I love for him to be able to develop with little to no media coverage. So by the time he starts putting up those great numbers that he will eventually be putting up, it's more like, okay, kind of a thing.
Right.
I do want to include on here, when we watched like the Drake May, the Drake May tape, you could see that there's throws that were like, okay, wow, like this dude, like that's a special arm. I don't think we ever saw any plays like that with Jayden Daniels. I think the biggest one we saw was there was a seam route against, I believe it was Army or Alabama, where the receiver it was a slot seam. He had just gotten past, like, hip to hip with the linebacker. Jayden read it perfectly, started separating the threw with anticipation, put the ball in between the safety, right in front of the safety, right behind the backer, allowing the receiver to make an easy catch. Made the safety miss, scored a touchdown. Like, that was the kind of throw I was like, okay, that's a pretty good throw. But there was never a time where we're like, that's a 1-of-1 throw, like we saw with Drake May.
Yeah.
How much do you think that will play a role in his ceiling at the next level?
It could play some. I mean, I think they're definitely going to look at it like every game, kind of like what we did, and probably stay up to 4 a.m. watching film. Instead, as like a joke, I know you're up to 2 a.m. watching his film, so they might do a little bit more. But I think that a lot of the evaluation is going to come during that Senior Bowl week too. Like, I know it's only like a week or so, but like, you're going to have NFL coaches coaching him.
So we'll call it there. But you guys tell us what you think about our Jayden Daniels draft profile. Do you agree with our draft grades, our pros or cons? Is there a game we should have watched that you felt maybe would have shown a different part of his game that we missed? Let us know in the comment section. Give us a like, subscribe. Again, we always love hearing from you guys. I feel like every time we do, we learn something new.